Picture yourself walking along a beach at sunset. The waves gently lap at your feet. And with each step, you leave footprints in the sand. These footprints, they're like the marks we leave on others through our kindness. But here's what's fascinating. Some of those footprints get washed away by the waves, while others remain, creating lasting impressions that change the very landscape of the shore. That's exactly what we're going to explore today. The profound, repeatedly borrowed money without returning it, or a colleague who always dumped their work on you because they knew you wouldn't say no. Or perhaps it was a relationship where you kept giving and giving only to feel increasingly empty inside. How did that make you feel? Take a moment, really sit with that feeling. Now here's the truth that might make you uncomfortable. You weren't just a victim in those situations. You were a participant. And that's actually wonderful news because it means you have the power to change the dynamic. You have the power to rewrite the story. You see, somewhere along the way, many of us learned that being kind meant always saying yes. That being kind meant putting everyone else's needs before our own. That being kind meant suffering in silence. The flower gave away all its petals. What would be left to bloom? The universe operates on a fundamental principle of balance. The ocean gives and takes. The earth nurtures life, but also demands respect. The sun provides warmth, but maintains its boundaries. Get too close, and you'll get burned. Why should your kindness be any different? When you consistently allow others to take advantage of your kindness, you're not just hurting yourself. You're actually enabling behavior that harms them too. Think about it. When you keep saying yes to unreasonable demands, you're teaching others that it's okay to exploit kindness. You're helping them build habits that will ultimately damage their other relationships and their own growth. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if I told you that setting boundaries isn't the opposite of kindness? It's actually the highest form of it. What if protecting your energy isn't selfish, but rather the most responsible thing you can do for everyone in your life? Imagine you're on an airplane. What does the flight attendant always say? Put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. This isn't just about airline safety. It's a profound metaphor for life. Because when you're gasping for air yourself, how effective can you really be at helping others breathe? Let's talk about what real kindness looks like. Real kindness has eyes wide open. It sees the truth of situations and people, not just what we wish they were. Real kindness has a backbone. It can stand tall and say, I care about you and I care. Real kindness knows that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is say no. You might be thinking, but what will people think? What if they get angry? What if they leave? These are valid fears. But consider this. Are relationships built on your inability to say no really relationships worth preserving? Is approval gained through self-betrayal really approval at all? The truth is, when you start setting healthy boundaries around your kindness, some people will get upset. Some might even leave. But these reactions tell you more about them than about you. Because authentic, mature people respect boundaries. They understand that healthy relationships require mutual respect and reciprocity. Think of your kindness as a garden. You are the gardener. Some people will come to appreciate the beauty of your garden, to contribute to its growth, maybe even plant some seeds of their own. Others will try to take every flower, dig up every root, and leave nothing but trampled earth behind. As the gardener, it's not just your right, but your responsibility to decide who gets to enter your garden and how they may interact with it. This doesn't mean building walls. It means installing gates. It means creating clear pathways that show others how to respectfully navigate your space. It means having the wisdom to distinguish between those who appreciate your garden's beauty and those who just want to pick it clean. Remember that moment I asked you to recall earlier, when someone took advantage of your kindness. Now I want you to reimagine that scenario. But this time, see yourself standing tall, wrapped in self-respect. See yourself saying, with gentle firmness, I care about you, but this doesn't work for me. See yourself walking away from situations that drain your soul, not with anger or resentment, but with the peaceful knowledge that you're honoring your own worth. When you start respecting your own kindness, others will too. When you demonstrate that your giving comes from a place of choice rather than compulsion, people begin to value what you offer more deeply. When you show that you can say no, Your yes becomes infinitely more meaningful. Think about the most respected people in your life, the ones whose kindness really touches your heart. Are they doormats? Do they let people walk all over them? Or do they combine their compassion with clear boundaries and self-respect? Brate mastered this ancient wisdom. True kindness flows from wholeness, not from holes in our self-worth that we're trying to fill. What would change in your life if you started treating your kindness as sacred? How would your relationships transform if you began operating from a place of conscious giving rather than compulsive pleasing? What dreams might you achieve if you redirected some of that endless outward energy back into your own growth? The path we're talking about isn't easy. Changing patterns that have been ingrained in us for years, maybe decades, requires courage. It requires facing our fears of rejection, our deep-seated beliefs about worthiness, our ancient wounds that taught us that we had to earn love through endless being kind to others were somehow in conflict. But nature shows us a different truth. The healthier and stronger the tree, the more it can offer to the world around it. The deeper its roots, the more stability it provides to the entire ecosystem. Think about the times you felt most depleted, most taken advantage of. In those moments, what quality of kindness were you really able to offer? When you're running on empty, when you're giving from a place of obligation rather than inspiration, does your kindness carry the same transformative power? Does it really serve anyone, including yourself? Every time you allow someone to take advantage of your kindness, you're not just hurting yourself, you're actually robbing them of an opportunity to grow. You're depriving them of the chance to develop empathy, to learn reciprocity, to understand boundaries. Your endless giving might be enabling their endless taking. When a mother bird feeds her chicks, she doesn't just keep feeding them forever. There comes a time when she steps back, when she creates space for them to learn to fly on their own. Is this unkind? Or is it the deepest form of kindness? The kind that believes in others' capacity to grow. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to stop cushioning others from the consequences of their actions. Sometimes true kindness means allowing others to feel the natural results of their choices. Because how else will they learn? How else will they evolve? But let's go deeper. What drives us to keep giving even when it hurts? What makes us stay in situations where our kindness is being exploited? Often, it's not really about kindness at all. It's about fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear of being seen as selfish, fear of being alone. Take a moment right now. Place your hand on your heart and feel its steady beat. This heart has been beating for you since before you took your first breath. It's never asked for permission to take care of you. It's never apologized for taking the resources it needs to keep you alive. Yet it's the very center of your capacity to love and give to others. What if you could learn from your own heart's wisdom? Your heart knows when to contract and when to expand. It knows how to maintain its own rhythm while serving the entire body. It knows that self-preservation and service to the whole are not opposites. They're part of the same sacred dance. What if your kindness became like water? Water is one of the kindest elements. It nourishes, it cleanses, it sustains life. But water also knows its worth. It doesn't beg to be appreciated. It doesn't compromise its essential nature to please others. It can be soft enough to caress a baby's skin and powerful enough to carve through mountains. It knows when to flow and when to stand firm as ice. Start observing your patterns around giving. When do you give from a place of authentic desire? And when do you give from fear or habit? When does your giving leave you feeling energized, and when does it leave you feeling depleted? These aren't just questions. They're keys to your transformation. Notice the people in your life who respect your boundaries versus those who try to push past them. Think of one situation in your life where you feel your kindness is being taken for granted. Now imagine you're advising your dearest friend about the same situation. What would you tell them? Would you encourage them to keep giving till they're empty? Or would you lovingly guide them toward better boundaries? Why is it that we often give others permission to protect themselves in ways we deny ourselves? Why do we see wisdom in others' boundaries but feel guilty about our own? Perhaps it's time to become your own best friend. to treat yourself with the same kindness you so readily offer others. Because here's what happens when you start practicing conscious kindness. Your yes becomes more powerful because it comes from choice rather than compulsion. Your no becomes more compassionate because it comes from self-respect rather than resentment. Your relationships become more authentic because they're built on truth rather than obligation. You might worry that setting boundaries means losing people. And yes, some relationships might change or even end when you start practicing conscious kindness. But consider that any relationship that requires you to betray yourself to maintain it is already broken. It's already causing harm to both parties. True kindness, conscious kindness, is like the sun. The sun doesn't shine brighter for some and dimmer for others. It doesn't exhaust itself trying to prove its worth. It doesn't apologize for going through cycles of rest and activity. It simply shines naturally and consistently while maintaining the perfect distance that allows life to flourish. You are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your healthy boundaries. You are not responsible for healing those who drain you dry. You are not responsible for fixing situations at the cost of your own well-being. What you're responsible for is being a good steward of your own energy, your own kindness, your own light. Think of the oxygen mask principle we discussed earlier. Now expand it. Your emotional well-being is your oxygen mask. Your boundaries are your oxygen mask. Your self-respect is your oxygen mask. Put them on first. Not out of selfishness, but out of the wisdom that knows you can't give what you don't have. Let's talk about something that happens in nature, something so profound it perfectly mirrors the journey we're discussing. When a pearl is formed, it begins with an irritant, a grain of sand that gets inside the oyster's shell. Instead of rejecting this irritant or letting it create harm, the oyster responds by slowly, patiently wrapping it in layers of protection, ultimately creating something precious and beautiful. This is exactly what we're learning to do with the challenges around our kindness. When someone tries to take advantage of your giving nature, that's your grain of sand. Your job isn't to ignore it, nor to let it continue irritating you. Your job is to transform it into something valuable, a lesson, a boundary, a deeper understanding of yourself. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your kindness as a magnificent garden that you've cultivated over years. In this garden, there are flowers of compassion, trees of wisdom, streams of generosity. Now imagine that this garden has no fence, no gates, no boundaries of any kind. What happens? People might wander in at any time, picking flowers without regard for their regrowth, trampling delicate plants, taking without considering the garden's sustainability. Is it unkind to install a gate? Is it selfish to create pathways that guide visitors through your garden in a way that preserves its beauty? Of course not. It's not just kind, it's essential. Because without these boundaries, eventually there would be no garden left to show. Every time you say yes, when your whole being wants to say no, you're not just betraying yourself. You're teaching others that your truth doesn't matter. Every time you give beyond your means, you're not just depleting yourself, you're teaching others that your well-being is less important than their demands. Think about a time when you felt completely seen, heard, and respected in your giving. Remember how that felt? That's because true appreciation can only exist where there's genuine choice. When your kindness comes from obligation or fear, it creates a subtle resentment that the other person can feel, even if they can't name it. It's a truth that might surprise you. People who genuinely care about you want to know your boundaries. They want to know how to interact with you in ways that honor both parties. They want a real relationship, not a one-way street of giving and taking. When you're driving at night, your headlights illuminate only a portion of the road ahead. But you don't panic about not seeing the entire journey at once. You trust that as you move forward, more of the path will become clear. Setting boundaries works the same way. You don't need to see every possible outcome. You just need to illuminate your next step. Your kindness is not an unlimited resource to be drained by anyone who demands it. It's more like a sacred well that needs to be protected. Distance isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're finally doing something right. Consider how a lighthouse operates. It doesn't chase ships. It doesn't dim its light for some and brighten it for others. It simply stands firm, shines consistently, and lets ships navigate by its light. That's what conscious kindness looks like. steady, clear, unwavering in its truth. You might be thinking, but what about forgiveness? What about compassion? Here's the thing. True forgiveness doesn't mean keeping yourself in harmful situations. True compassion includes compassion for yourself. You can forgive someone and still choose not to let them close enough to hurt you again. Let's talk about guilt. That nagging feeling that sometimes comes up when we start setting boundaries. Remember, this guilt is often a sign that we're changing patterns that no longer serve us. It's not a sign that we're doing something wrong. It's a sign that we're doing something new. Your capacity for kindness is one of your most beautiful qualities. But like any quality, it needs to be stewarded wisely. Think of it like a fine instrument. Yes, it's made to be played, but it also needs tuning, maintenance, and protection to create its most beautiful music. What would my kindness look like if it was free from fear? What would my giving look like if it came purely from love rather than obligation? How would my relationships change if I trusted that my needs were as important as everyone else? When you start practicing conscious kindness, you become a teacher. Your example shows others what healthy giving looks like. Your boundaries demonstrate what healthy relationships look like. Your self-respect teaches others how to respect themselves. Every time you set a healthy boundary, you're not just changing your own life. You're contributing to a larger shift in consciousness. You're showing others that it's possible to be both kind and strong, both giving and self-honoring, both compassionate and clear. The path of conscious kindness isn't always easy, but it's infinitely worthwhile. Because on this path, you discover that true kindness doesn't diminish you, it enlarges you, it doesn't drain you, it fulfills you. It doesn't compromise your truth, it expresses it. Picture a mountain stream. It gives endlessly, nourishing everything in its path. But notice something crucial. It never gives all of itself away. It maintains its core essence, its flow, its path. This is exactly how conscious kindness works. Giving generously while maintaining your essential nature. Let's dive deep into something that holds so many kind people back. The fear of being seen as selfish. This fear runs so deep that it can keep us trapped in patterns of overgiving long after we recognize they're not serving anyone. Self-perspective shift that might free you by selfishness is taking more than you need. Self-respect is honoring what you need. Can you feel the difference? Think about the times you've been on an airplane. The oxygen mask instruction isn't just about emergency. Flexible enough to respond to others' needs, but firmly rooted in self-respect. Every time you override your inner wisdom to please others, you're not just betraying yourself. You're teaching the universe that your truth doesn't matter. Every time you ignore your own needs to meet others' demands, you're sending a message to your soul that your well-being is negotiable. But what about compassion? What about empathy? Here's a beautiful paradox. True compassion includes yourself. Real empathy encompasses your own feelings too. When you exclude yourself from your circle of kindness, you're practicing a diminished form of these qualities. The earth gives abundantly, fruits, flowers, resources, beauty. But it also has natural cycles of rest and replenishment. It has boundaries, atmospheres that protect it, natural laws that govern what it can sustain. Your kindness should mirror this divine design. Let's talk about something that often trips up kind-hearted people. The difference between helping and enabling. When you keep giving to someone who consistently takes advantage, you're not helping them grow. You're enabling patterns that ultimately harm both of you. Real help sometimes means stepping back and allowing others to face the consequences of their choices. Think about a time when someone respected your boundaries, honored your no, celebrated your self-care. How did that feel? That's the kind of energy you want to cultivate in all your relationships. That's the standard you want to set for how others interact with your kindness. Here's a powerful truth. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give, how much you sacrifice, or how much you endure. Your worth is inherent, unchangeable, divine. Your giving should flow from this truth, not from an attempt to prove your value. Stop for a moment and place your hand over your heart. Feel its steady rhythm. Your heart sustains your entire body, but it doesn't give away all its blood. It maintains a perfect balance of giving and receiving. It knows when to contract and when to expand. This is the wisdom your kindness needs to embody. Consider how a wise parent loves their child. They give abundantly, but they also set boundaries. They support growth, but they don't enable dependency. They offer help, but they also step back to allow learning through experience. This is conscious kindness in action. When you start honoring your own boundaries, you become more attractive to healthy relationships and less attractive to toxic ones. It's like you're sending out a new energetic signature that naturally attracts those who respect authentic connections and repels those looking to exploit. Think about what happens when you say yes, while your whole being wants to say no. That inner conflict creates a subtle resentment that seeps into your giving. The person receiving can feel it, even if they can't name it. Your kindness becomes clouded, less pure, less powerful. When you set healthy boundaries, you're not just taking care of yourself. You're creating a sacred space where genuine connections can flourish. You're establishing a template for relationships based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Consider the ocean. It's incredibly generous, sustaining countless forms of life. But it also has natural boundaries. It doesn't leave its bed to follow ships. It doesn't abandon its nature to please others. It gives abundantly while staying true to what it is. Let's talk about forgiveness, because this trips up many kind people. True forgiveness doesn't mean keeping yourself available for more hurt. It doesn't mean abandoning boundaries. It means releasing the emotional charge while maintaining wise discernment about future interactions. Your sensitivity, your kindness, your desire to help others. These are superpowers, not weaknesses. But like any power, they need to be wielded with wisdom. They need to be protected and directed consciously. Think about the sun. It gives life to our entire planet, but it maintains its boundaries. Get too close, and you'll get burned. Stay at the right distance, and you'll receive exactly what you need to thrive. Your kindness needs this same kind of natural wisdom. Every time you honor your boundaries, you're not just changing your own life. You're contributing to the healing of collective consciousness. You're showing others that it's possible to be both kind and strong, both giving and discerning. Your journey toward conscious kindness isn't just about you. It's about creating a new paradigm of relating, one, where giving flows from wholeness rather than woundedness, where boundaries are seen as acts of love rather than walls of defense. Stop for a moment and imagine a world where everyone practiced conscious kindness, where giving was always voluntary, never coerced, where boundaries were respected as sacred, where relationships were built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. You're helping create that world every time you practice conscious kindness. As we bring our journey together to a close, let's return to that beach we visualized at the beginning. Those footprints in the sand, they represent the impact you leave on the world through your kindness. Some footprints need to remain, while others are meant to be washed away by the waves of wisdom and self-respect. Think about a master painter in its purest form. Let me share something powerful with you. Every time you set a healthy boundary, you're not just protecting yourself. You're teaching others how to love better. Every time you honor your own needs alongside others, you're showing the world what healthy relationships look like. Think about your kindness as a sacred flame. If you let everyone take from it without discretion, what happens? The flame dims, flickers, and might even go out. But when you protect it, nurture it, and share it wisely, it becomes a beacon that can light countless other flames without diminishing its own brightness. When you start practicing conscious kindness, something magical happens. The right people begin to show up in your life. People who respect boundaries, who give as well as receive, who celebrate your self-care rather than punish you for it. Your kindness is not an unlimited resource to be drained by anyone who demands it. It's more like a precious garden that needs tending, protection, and periodic rest to keep blooming. When you treat it with this level of reverence, others will learn to do the same. Stop for a moment and imagine yourself as a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't chase after ships. It doesn't dim its light for some and brighten it for others. It simply stands in its truth, shines consistently, and lets ships navigate by its light. This is your new model for conscious kindness. Every boundary you set with love becomes a bridge to deeper, more authentic connections. Every time you say no with respect, you create space for a more meaningful yes. Every time you honor your own truth, you invite others to do the same. Think about the most nurturing relationships in your life. Aren't they the ones where both parties feel free to be honest, to have limits, to take space when needed? This is what you're creating in all your relationships when you practice conscious kindness. Your sensitivity is not a weakness to be overcome. Your desire to help others is not a flaw to be fixed. These are beautiful qualities that simply need the protection of healthy boundaries. Like a precious jewel needs a strong setting to shine its brightest. When someone responds to your boundaries with anger or manipulation, they're not reacting to your limits. They're mourning the loss of their control over you. Their reaction is not your responsibility to manage. As you practice conscious kindness, you become a living example of what's possible. You show others that they too can be both kind and strong, both giving and boundary, both compassionate and clear. Think about what it would feel like to live from this place of conscious kindness, to give joyfully because you're giving from choice rather than compulsion, to love freely because you're loving from wholeness rather than fear, to help others while remaining deeply connected to your own truth. Your journey toward conscious kindness is not just a personal evolution, it's part of a larger awakening. Every time you practice these principles, you contribute to a world where kindness and strength are no longer seen as opposites, but as natural partners in the dance of authentic living. You move forward from this moment. Remember, your kindness is a gift, but you are the guardian of how this gift is shared. You get to decide how, when, and guard it wisely. Share it consciously. Let it shine in ways that lift both you and others higher. As you leave this space, carry this wisdom in your heart. True kindness flows like a river, giving generously while maintaining its course, nourishing everything it touches while never losing its essential nature. You are not just a giver of kindness, you are a sacred keeper. Honor this role, embrace this truth, and watch how your relationships transform as you begin to practice kindness that comes from wholeness rather than habit, from truth rather than fear, from love rather than obligation. The world needs your kindness, but it needs your whole, healthy, boundary kindness. It needs your conscious kindness. It needs the kindness that flows from your deepest truth, not from your deepest wounds. Step into this new way of being. Trust that as you honor your own boundaries, you create space for more authentic connections. Trust that as you practice conscious kindness, you inspire others to do the same. Your journey toward conscious kindness starts now. Every moment is a new opportunity to practice these principles, to stand in your truth while remaining open-hearted, to give from wholeness rather than depletion. You are not just changing your own life through these practices. You are helping to create a world where kindness and strength walk hand in hand, where giving and receiving dance in perfect balance, where love includes both self and other in its sacred circle. This is your path now. Walk it with courage, with wisdom, and with the deep knowing that conscious kindness is not just a way of acting. It's a way of being that transforms everything it touches.